Welcome back, TechBridge Nation. So I hope you've enjoyed the conference so far this morning. We come to one of our favorite parts of the conference where we just ask a gazillion questions to entrepreneurs. So anything's fair game. So put some questions in the Q&A, and moderator Chris Spiker will ask our entrepreneurs. Here's one thing that I do want to ask all of you who have spent the time here today. As long as you're spending the time, would you do me a favor and reach out and just get engaged with someone you have never met before? That's kind of a scary thing to do. We often talk about that when we're live. Just go introduce yourself. Put yourself out there. Practice. Go introduce yourself to somebody. Put a question out. Get involved with one of the topics. Stay engaged in the conference. That's part of why you're here. And then we're going to wrap it up. So our moderator is Dr. Chris Spiker, and he's from Marywood. He did our early bird special, and you'll be able to see that recording if you missed it. And our three entrepreneurs this morning, from my far left, Dina Gaughan, and she's with Sticky Smart Wallet. Abe Salam, he's with Epic Revenue Consultants. And Nicole Chinnici, and she's with Organtick. And Dr. Spiker, you may take it off, take over as soon as I wipe down. Have fun, Chris.
Thank you very much, Don. Hi, guys. I'd first like to ask you to each spend a minute to introduce yourself and do a shout out to various people that got you to where you are.
Awesome.
Dina?
Yes, so my name is Dina Gaughan. I own a business called Sticky Smart Wallet. I'm from the Hazleton area. Go Cougars. I have an undergraduate degree from East Stroudsburg University and my master's degree from Wilkes University. And I'm really excited to be here.
Great, thank you, Dina. Abe?
I'm Abe Salam from Epic Revenue Consultants. I'm the founder of Epic Revenue Consultants, originally from New Jersey, just moved to the area about 2 years ago. My business basically does revenue management consulting in the hospitality field for hotels and resorts, not just in the US, but all over the world. And I'm happy to be here as well.
Great, thank you. Nicole?
Hi, Nicole Chinnici, owner and founder of Organtick. I have an undergraduate degree from Bloomsburg University and a master's from East Stroudsburg University. And Organtick is a company that's developing all-natural tick repellents. And I have a lot of people to thank for my venture here, one of which is TechBridge, who helped me throughout the whole entire help sessions. Don Webster, Jerry Leisman, and Posture, who's here today with some of the website development. So there's been a lot of people that I'm excited to talk about that got me where I am today.
Great, thank you. So, very difficult time to be in business, particularly to be a young startup business. Let's start with you, Dina. Tell me some of the challenges that you've faced during the past year, not only from COVID, but just in general. What are the biggest challenges in your business?
My biggest challenge definitely was when COVID hit, I sell promotional products. So all of the customers that I sell promotional products to were canceling their conferences. They were canceling schools. So I really had no customers to sell to. So that was a big moment for me and my company. And I had to pivot into selling what people need right now. And that was that was PPE. So we switched over immediately to selling things that I've never thought I'd sell before, things that I never thought I'd learn about before, like nitrile gloves, all different levels and grades of masks. So the pandemic definitely hit my business hard, but it put my back against the wall and enabled me to make a change, and a change for the better, a change for my customers, and helped me to just keep staying in business.
Great, thank you. How about you, Abe?
Well, as we all know, hospitality was hit pretty hard when COVID hit. And a lot of my clients, which are typically hotel owners, management companies, a lot of the hotels closed down. So the first thing I did immediately was to make sure my clients and my customers were taken care of. With that being said, one thing that I did in my business is, postpone payment, right? A lot of these have 1 year, 2 year contracts with us. And knowing that they don't have the cash flow to pay for our services, that's something I was willing to do for them. Because I think it's very important as an entrepreneur to take care of your clients, your customers, because at the end of the day, we know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Once a vaccine comes out, and hospitality will be back. It's going to take a lot longer to recover, but it's extremely important to to take care of your customers, take care of your guests, and make sure that you're taking, all the necessary actions to make sure once COVID is over with, you'll be in a better situation to move forward. And it's also a great opportunity for my business because we look at more efficient ways to manage hotels and provide them with software to help them disseminate their data and a business intelligence tool that creates a lot of efficiencies. So COVID actually in the beginning had a big impact on me, but it's, I took it as an opportunity moving forward.
Great, thank you very much. And how about you, Nicole?
So interesting enough, I'm still in the research and development of my product. Right now we're waiting for the Environmental Protection Agency to approve our active ingredients. But when COVID first hit with Organtick, we rent out a lab space at East Stroudsburg University where we conduct research. So what happened was the university shut down access to the building for anybody who wasn't an essential employee of the university. So I had to stop research for about 2 months, which delayed the process into the fall. We were originally hoping to get up and running for the fall, but that has been pushed back. So it has affected us a little bit in the research side of things. And I do own a different company. I own a CrossFit gym, and just to talk about how COVID can affect you, we had to shut down with our facility, but like any other entrepreneur, you try to be as creative and think outside the box as possible. So what we did as an ownership is we put in some money and we built an outside area. So essentially it was like an adult playground, and we moved from being inside to outside, and we did home workouts, home programming, and an area at which they were allowed to come visit and conduct workouts that way. So even though COVID has been tough, there's been ways that you can become variable and change it up and think outside the box to really be successful.
Great. So thank you guys for those introductions. We have lots of young entrepreneurs that are here with us today in the audience, both at the high school level and the college level. Young entrepreneurs have, they've never been through the rejection process, the beginning stages of being an entrepreneur and how difficult it is. Could you share with us your first rejection and how you handled that and how it inspired you to move forward? Because apparently, if you're here, you were inspired to move forward. So, can you share some ideas with us?
So, my answer will be a little bit different. So I always knew I wanted to start my own business. However, I didn't know what product I wanted to sell, what service I wanted to offer. So I always tell people just go for something that you already know or that's a hobby. And I used to love to bake. I used to love eating candies and chocolates. So one of my first business ventures was to make caramel with rum in it. So the company name was Caramel. Well, it didn't go far because I knew nothing about the food industry. I knew nothing truly about baking at that level. I really knew nothing about business at that time. So it failed. So that was probably my first, I would say, internal rejection in general. And it led me to Sticky Smart Wallet. It was just the next venture. I thought, wow, a phone wallet on the back of your phone, how convenient. I'm going to give this a whirl. And I put my all into it and ended up being successful.
Hey, tell us about your first rejection.
Well, I love rejection. So for me, hearing no is a big motivation for me in terms of, proving people wrong. For me, I've worked for 15 years in the hospitality field. I've worked in some of the biggest markets. I've worked in New York City, California, and I've managed hotels in Times Squares that are 1,000 rooms. But it was really scary, going out on my own and opening up my company. And in terms of a rejection, my first rejection, I went to a hotel owner and I was pitching him sort of what I do and that he could outsource his revenue management to me, and then we have this proprietary software that would help him make more money. And his first response was, well, what other clients do you have? And at the time I had no other clients. So it was tough. I had to take a step back and find what my competitive edge was against some of the big consulting companies that are in the area and how I could compete with them. And that's what led me to, creating the software, the proprietary software to really help manage a lot of these hotels. But for me, no is a big motivator, and it just pushes me to work harder.
Great, thank you very much. Nikki.
So with entrepreneurship, it's like a roller coaster. There's so many rejections that sometimes I can't even remember what the first one was. But I know that when I first started this venture, I was working with some students at the university, and we received funding through the National Science Foundation. And we thought the process was going great, and we had this idea of and envision to get Organtick up and running. And then essentially my partner at that time turned around and decided to move on and left me kind of on my own. And as a first-time starter of a company, it was very scary. I didn't really know where I was going. I thought I was going to have some help at that time. So that was really the first rejection, is my partner leaving. And there's been other ones throughout, and it's a constant roller coaster, but you have to surround yourself by mentors and people that believe in you and keep yourself up, so when you know you're going down that very slippery slope, you have somebody that's going to be there to know that you're about to hit bottom and to help you back up. So it's a process and it's a venture, but you have to surround yourself by people that are there, that are going to be there for you.
Great. Now a question from the audience. I have a really interesting question from a young person named Shane Phillips. Hi, I'm Shane, and I'm 17 years old, and I run my own coffee roasting business.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how you guys create good partnerships with customers, and also how other businesses locally in your circle, in your niche. So how do you create partnerships? What's the thing that you do to go out in the local community to get involved? I know in almost every business that I've been involved in, I go out and try to find and bounce ideas off as many people who I really respect and try to get them engaged and constantly giving me feedback and information. Who do you use when you're creating that pool of information to bounce ideas off of?
I mean, I think you could build relationships anywhere. I would start with the relationships you might already have. So for example, one of the gyms I go to, Evolve Fitness in Pittston, the owner there is very energetic. She wants everyone to get to know one another, help one another, not just because of, the fitness environment, but also how we might help each other outside of the gym. And there's been many times where she's held mixers and shared my information with people. Actually, one of my clients, which is Lackawanna College, they order masks from my company, and that all stemmed from a relationship that I had at my gym with the gym owner and another member who just so happens to be a part of the faculty at Lackawanna College. So you could look at your existing relationships, just start the conversation, get people to get to know you, and then it'll roll from there.
Great, thank you. How about you, Abe?
For me, I think, partnerships and comes through networking, right? And to Don's point earlier, reach out to someone that you don't know, because you'll be surprised. That person tends to be the person that's going to help you out the most. So what I've done, in my business is obviously I use my internal network, but I'm always networking on LinkedIn. I'm reaching out to people. I'm attending conferences. And at the end of the day, I'm a strong believer that people like to do business with people that they like, as long as you have a good product, right? That's the second part of it. So it's really important to get out there as a young 17-year-old and network and meet new people, reach out to people, and you got to be driven, right? And you got to want it, right? You got to have the passion for it, and if you have that, I think you'll be very successful.
Great, Nikki.
Yeah, so there's getting out there and networking is really important. There's some other things too, just to build off of the other panelists have mentioned, is find some to interact with other businesses that are like yours. So for coffee, I would look around to find other enthusiasts that share your same passion as you. And then try to do things together. A mixer is a great idea. For our CrossFit facility, I own a CrossFit gym in East Stroudsburg, and there's one other gym, and we do a lot of fundraisers together. So if there's, for instance, 9/11, we did a fundraiser for the local fire department, and we did it together so that they were able to, their volunteers, raise money for the facility. Since COVID hit, they had reduction in funds. So there's ways that maybe either it's community fundraisers, getting out and networking, mixers, things like that to bring it together. And then for customers, as long as you share your passion and your enthusiasm, they'll stick around and they'll enjoy it. So if you provide a good product, they'll be there.
Great. So another question from Keith Eberts. Keith would like to know, what's the worst mistake someone can make when starting a business? Let's start with you, Abe.
Well, let's start by saying you're going to make a lot of mistakes as an entrepreneur. So I wouldn't, it's you're going to make tons of mistakes. I've made tons of mistakes. I have tons of experience. But at the end of the day, you need to keep moving forward and learn from your mistakes. Don't make the same mistake twice. So it's really important. And I can't point one big mistake out. I think what I would say is you're going to get a lot of people that are telling you you can't do this. No, this idea is not a good idea. But at the end of the day, if you believe in your idea, the biggest mistake you could do is give up on it. And I think especially with the younger crowd, they don't have the patience, right? And with entrepreneurship, that's one of the biggest characteristics that you need, to be extremely patient, because it does take time to grow your business. And you will make tons of mistakes. You just need to learn from those mistakes and move forward.
Great, thank you. Nicole?
Exactly. So you will make a lot of mistakes, but I think the biggest mistake you can make is not starting. So if you have a passion and you have an idea, then get started, start talking to people, find out what you have to do. But if you never get started, you never can get down that road. But once you get going, you're going to make those mistakes and they're going to happen. But again, building off what Abe said, you need to learn from those mistakes and figure out how the next time that situation comes up, how you can be better. And all of that will take you down a successful way.
I think you can eliminate some mistakes in the beginning by having an organized plan. A lot of times people will tell you, well, you have to have a business plan, which sounds really daunting. If you do a Google search and look at these elaborate business plans, it's a little bit scary. But if you just get a sheet of paper, write out your plan, write out, who your target audience would be, how you would intend to sell your product or service, and just get organized, you can really navigate through some challenges in advance of hitting those challenges and being like, oh, this isn't going to work, or I made a mistake.
Great answers. Thank you guys so much. Now one question from a former student of mine, Gabrielle Santos. What keeps you motivated at the beginning of starting your business? What's the thing that motivated you in the beginning to keep going? Particularly now, the challenges are so great and it's lots of difficult things to overcome. What's the one thing that kept you guys motivated and focused to keep moving forward? I'll start with you, Nikki.
Passion. So for Organtick, my company is developing an all-natural tick repellent, and right now Lyme disease is a huge public health crisis. There's not really effective products out there. So my drive keeps coming from the fact that I want to be someone who makes a difference. I want to help people protect themselves while they're outside enjoying the outdoors, hiking, playing with their pets, playing with their kids in the backyard. So the passion keeps me with the drive.
Great, thank you. Dina?
One thing I do to stay motivated is I listen to podcasts. There's a free app called Stitcher, and two of my favorite podcasts are Biz Women Rock and Entrepreneur on Fire. And just listening to like-minded entrepreneurs who are facing the same challenges or in a rut and how they got out of it, it just keeps me passionate, it keeps me motivated. And sometimes that's hard. You do your day-to-day activities and you might forget why you started to begin with, but just hearing from other people really just invigorates you again.
Right.
Yep. And just to piggyback off Nicole, I agree with her 100%. Passion is, I think, the number one thing, because there are times where it's lonely being an entrepreneur. There's times where business is slow, and if you don't have that passion, you're going to end up giving up, right? And that's the worst thing you could do is give up. So you got to have that passion, and I also recommend setting small goals, right? And celebrating those small achievements as you grow your business.
So we have an interesting question from a high school student, John Gasowski. I'm not certain what school John is from, but it says, what's the best advice you can offer high school students about someday starting a business? So what kind of steps, looking back, we all get this beauty of looking backwards once we get started later in life and say, if I could have done this one thing differently, what would the advice that you would give to a high school student to say, this is my piece of the map that I would tell you that you have to look at in your journey?
Find what you're passionate about. The panelists talk a lot about, that they're really passionate about what they do, and that's going to lead to success. So find something you're passionate about. It could be a hobby that you have now. It could be, something that you stumble into. But if you find what your passion is, take that and run with it.
Great.
I would say get a mentor as soon as possible, right? Get someone with real life experience, someone that you could bounce ideas off, and to help you through the process, right? I think the worst thing you could do is keep everything to yourself and think you could do it, and you don't need the help to get to where you need to be. So, throughout my career and my process, there's always been a mentor or someone I could look up to and bounce ideas off, and I think that's extremely important, especially as a young entrepreneur that might lack a little bit of that experience that's needed.
Okay, great. So many of the questions on here today are about money. And of course, that seems to be the biggest challenge for most young entrepreneurs to get started. How do you overcome that initial, besides, really borrowing heavy on your credit cards and relying on your FFFs, your 3Fs, your friends, family, and fools, where do you start with going out to find that money and get your business started? Can you guys give us a little insight?
When I started my business, I had a full-time job. I was already well into my career in management. So, any extra money at the end of the day that I got from that, I just reinvested into my business. Another thing is to start small. So the first product that I launched and how I launched my business, Sticky Smart Wallet, was by selling phone wallets. And I started by selling them on eBay. So, we all want to think big, and one day we will get to that big picture, but it's okay to also start small and build that revenue and then reinvest that revenue that you make so that you don't have to borrow off anybody and the business could be solely yours.
Great answer. Abe?
I think it's okay to have another job while starting a business. I think that's very important, especially as a young individual. You need money to pay your bills, obviously, but like we talked about, start small, and I wouldn't recommend going out there and maxing your credit cards to, because you believe in your product. I think you need to really focus on making sure that your what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's always, you could ask your parents for money, but at the end of the day, I think, I've always been self-funded, right, and in my business, and I've had other jobs while working on my business on the side. So I think the right way to do it is not jump into the deep end of the pool right away. So.
Very, very, very good advice, particularly the credit card part.
Yeah.
Nicole.
And I'll piggyback on that. So everything that the panelists said were great ideas, and some other things that are out there. TechBridge is really good. They have some business plan competitions, high school, collegiate level, non-collegiate level. So it's not a lot of money, but at least it gives you some resources and some starting funds. But starting small and building your way up and reinvesting in yourself as you go is a great idea, so that you don't have to stretch yourself too thin.
Okay, great. So there's a question from Thea Esteves. What small businesses with small businesses rapidly closing due to COVID, would you still recommend starting the process of opening a business for new entrepreneurs, or should you tell them to wait until the vaccine's around and things calm down?
Absolutely, start your business. Do not wait. There are services, there are products that people need during a pandemic. It's the pandemic just makes you think a little bit more about, the smart way of launching something. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't launch it. It just means you have to think a little bit harder about how you're going to launch it, who your target audience is, and how you could, roll your business off that. So depending on what you're looking to do, I'd say if you think through it, you can absolutely launch it during the pandemic.
Great, thank you very much. How about you, Nikki?
Oh, me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Okay, absolutely. I definitely agree to start your business. Overcome and adapt is an important philosophy for entrepreneurs. So just think about maybe what you were going to do before and just reevaluate that plan and just see if there's another way that's more cost effective for you to get into the market. If you're selling a product, maybe you just stick to online sales for now and not in say a storefront, but just look at that plan, review it, and then maybe get some mentors on board who are small businesses currently working through the pandemic so that they can assist you and start to identify ways how you can get started.
I think it depends on your product, and timing is everything, especially with business. I don't know if you all remember, but back in the recession, Airbnb and Uber were created during the recession, right? When everyone thought it was a crazy idea to have someone book something online and stay in your house or in your apartment. And today, Airbnb is going public, right, in the stock market. So again, I think timing and the product plays an important role. And if you feel you have the right product and this is the right time, I think it creates a great opportunity.
I know we all wish we had the crystal ball that we could look into, and the beauty of entrepreneurs is that they usually have some foresight into the future. If you had to be able to predict where the next big thing is going to be, maybe in your own sector or maybe in a different sector, but do you have ideas of where young students should position themselves today for the next generation? They might not be graduating, they might not be thinking about starting a business for a few years, but if they had to start positioning themselves today, what would be the sector that you would say, this is something you should look at?
I think I would have to say technology. Based especially off of what's going on with the pandemic, technology and people needing technology and virtual platforms to be able to interact with each other. But it could be anywhere. I mean, if I really knew the answer to that, I think I would have a lot of money right now. But I think I would have to say somewhere in the science and technology field.
I think a lot of the sectors are going to change post-COVID, especially in the hospitality, right? You're used to going to a hotel, checking in, that interaction with an individual. I think that's all going to change in the hospitality sector. I think you're going to see a lot more contactless, check-ins where you go up to a machine and you're able to check in, and you could, get into your room using your phone. So I think, post-COVID, every industry is going to change, and I think there's a ton of opportunities for new entrepreneurs out there to really make an impact. So I think, again, like I mentioned before, I think with any recession or any pandemic, there's tons of opportunities for businesses and ideas.
I'd say with anything that you don't know and anything that you can't really predict, just educate yourself. Read books on the topic that you're interested in and learn from experts, learn about what's out there, and then you can make your own judgment or predictions based upon everything you learned about where the world is headed.
Great. So great question here from Jonas Raymond. Hi, my name is Jonas, and I've been a fitness trainer in Scranton, PA area for 7 years now, and I recently launched my own fitness accessory line, My Volante. I may have butchered that, but my question is, would you suggest approaching local businesses, specifically gyms or studios, to get my products in their facilities? And how do you think I can advance my ideas? So we have some fitness people on the stage
I
here.
guess I'll start because I'm a fitness person. Absolutely. Another thing is, as a fitness advocate, constantly is social media marketing, because I could tell you I go on social media and everything that pops up is usually having to do with fitness. So you just need to get yourself in front of your customers. That's going to be really important to get started. So you can start small and get into some of the local gyms, and also on social media. Get your storefront ready so that you could sell directly online. Amazon's another way that you can go. But any way that you can get in front of your customers is going to be a good start.
So I'm not a fitness expert, but in terms of what Nicole said, social media plays an important role. And again, I think even if you're not an expert in, digital marketing and how to get your product in front of customers, potential customers. I think one of the important characteristics of being an entrepreneur is being resourceful, right? So knowing that you're not an expert in something and finding someone that could help you get your product in front of the right people, I think is extremely important.
I'd also say, how does your product line differentiate from other product lines that might already be out there? So find what your competitive advantage is and use that as a strength. Even if you're selling on platforms like eBay or Amazon, you want to call that out, because if that's something different that you could call out and that would make somebody look at your company more than somebody else's, you definitely want to highlight that.
Great. Okay, so, you know, I run lots of classes on how to be an entrepreneur. One of my favorite sections that I've made up is, you know, stealing packets of ketchup from Burger King and mixing them with hot water to make tomato soup is not a survival strategy. So, you know, lots of young entrepreneurs on here. It's great to see the great questions coming from these young entrepreneurs, but they have to survive. And we talked a little bit about, you know, have another job, have other ideas in place, but as you know, so many young entrepreneurs are just so anxious to get right into it. Give them their one piece of advice, the one piece of hard advice that you want to leave. This isn't the last question, but that you want to leave them with, so that sticks with them, from the sense that if I'm going to start a business, I have to do X. Did I stump the panel?
No, I think, you know, my point of view is you have to recognize that starting a business is the hardest thing you'll probably do in your life. It can be extremely lonely. There's going to be times where you want to quit, but you need to be patient. Success doesn't happen overnight, and you need to keep working on your product and working on your whatever, and your clients as well, right? So if you're going to jump into the deep end and start a business, you have to be extremely patient, and you have to know this is extremely hard, because if it was easy, everybody would be an entrepreneur, right? So to be successful, you just got to keep going and set small goals for yourself. And I think if you follow these things, you'll end up making it. So.
I think you also have to be really agile. What you might think is a success or what is selling today isn't necessarily what's going to sell tomorrow. So as you're pursuing what you want to sell or what service you want to provide, you might learn about something different or how technology is changing. And that might be a pivot point for you to learn more and go into something different that you didn't think about to start with. So start somewhere, learn while you're doing that, and remain agile to just continue, working the business, working your plan, and reaching for your goal and your successes.
Great, excellent. So,
Sorry, go ahead.
What's that?
I was going to, no.
Oh, I'm sorry, please.
It's okay. I was going to build off because passion was my first one, and then you took it. Then I was going to say be open to criticism so you can adapt. But then that one was taken. So I just want to add in there, if I had to say one hard thing, it would be those two, but to keep pushing and just make sure before you dive head first that you have a plan, and then enter maybe with your toes and feet first.
So, some of us come from backgrounds where we had family members who were entrepreneurs. Tell me a little bit about what made you want to be an entrepreneur initially. What was the thing that sparked each of you? The one thing that happened that made you pivot from I'm going to be the corporate guru to I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
I didn't like somebody telling me how much money I was capable of making. I worked in a salary and commission-based structure, and even the commission was capped in a way, and I'm like, you know what? I know that I could make more money than this. I know that I have unique ideas, that maybe I can't bring to the table in this organization because it doesn't fit. And my dad also was a business owner growing up, and the piece of advice he always gave me was never to go into business because the phone doesn't stop ringing and you can't really leave your work at work. And I did not follow his advice, and I'm so glad I didn't. because I really wanted to unleash my potential. I knew that I could accomplish anything I set my mind to. I have a really can-do attitude, and attitude does play a really big role in whether or not you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur. But I just didn't like to be told, you know, what I can and cannot do, what I can and cannot accomplish, and what I can and cannot make in my bank account.
I agree 100% with that. For me, it's having full autonomy, right? In terms of, you know, the flexibility of my work, what I could do, making the decisions for my company. But in my mind, I didn't originally want to be an entrepreneur. I had a nice, cushy corporate job, but I felt that I wasn't fulfilled, and I needed more, right? And at the time, I saw a great opportunity in the hospitality sector to branch off and start my company and provide a business intelligence tool that helps small hotel owners, big hotel companies disseminate their data. And I knew there wasn't a product in the market. Since I have, you know, over 15 years of experience, I knew there wasn't a product in the market that does what I could do in terms of the data and how we could present that data in a way to increase top line revenues for a lot of these hotels. So it was all about timing and seeing an opportunity in the market.
You know, an interesting point. I mean, the hospitality sector has been crushed.
Yep.
Do you see it coming back fully?
I think it's going to take a really long time for the big markets like New York City, Miami, San Francisco, the big urban markets to recover. I think over 30% of the hotels in New York City have closed down permanently. A lot of the big boxes, the big hotels that have been around for 100 years have closed down permanently. So that's going to take 3, 4, 5 years to recover from, to go back to the occupancy levels that New York had, right? But I think there's tons of opportunity in markets such as the Poconos, for example. People are looking to leave New York City and go out to secondary and tertiary markets for vacation. So I think there's a huge opportunity for markets like the Poconos and other destinations that typically, you know, one wouldn't think of when vacationing.
Great, thank you. So I have one final question for you guys. So if you had one, we have lots of questions that are popping up, and I hope you guys will respond to them later, particularly about the blog that you suggested. There's been 4 or 5 questions related to the blog. So if you could respond to them and give them specifics, that would be wonderful. The one piece of advice that you want to leave students with today, that if you could say to them, you know, 10 years ago, if somebody gave me this piece of advice, 5 years ago, if somebody gave you this piece of advice, that you want to leave them with today.
So there's 2 books that I love, and I didn't read one of them until I actually already owned my own business, which was surprising, and it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It definitely was one of the most inspiring books I've read about why you should be an entrepreneur and why you should start your own business. And another one is The Secret, and it talks about manifestation and how everything you put your mind to, everything you put your actions into, it'll manifest into what you really want to achieve in life. So if somebody would have told me about those 2 books a little bit sooner, I think it would have done me some good. But my biggest piece of advice is read, learn about yourself, learn about whatever sector you think you want to get into, and just, the world is your oyster. You could accomplish anything you set your mind to, so just figure out what that is and take a hold of it and run with it.
Thank you. Abe?
I think the biggest piece of advice I would give someone is get started, right? The worst thing you could do is wait and surround yourself with people that are sort of your cheerleaders, right? Because there will be people out there that are going to be negative and tell you your idea is a bad idea, your idea is not going to work. I think what you need to do is separate yourselves from those people and surround yourselves with people that motivate you. I think, having someone cheering you on is going to motivate you to keep going. And most importantly, you have to be patient. Again, it takes time to succeed, and it's not overnight. And if you continue along that path, I think you'll find that you will be heavily rewarded at the end.
Great. Nicole?
I would have to say be curious. If you are continuously being curious and asking questions, you'll start to gain more knowledge and more information. So even if it's in a category of something that you're not familiar with, be curious, ask a lot of questions, surround yourself by somebody who might be an expert in it, whether it's reading a book, listening to a podcast, or finding someone in the local community that is an expert at it, but just be curious and ask questions.
Great. I want to thank you guys. I've been doing this for a couple years now, and this is one of the best panels I think we've ever had. So I really, really want to thank you guys. It was excellent. And now I'm going to hand it back to Don Webster, who's going to come in with a few closing comments.
So Chris, I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. Okay, so it's been interesting. I've been sitting out in the audience listening to you guys. And I think one of the messages that came across from you guys is this is really hard. It's really hard, but yet you guys keep doing it. So maybe the last question, I asked this to Jordan before, and I'd like to ask it to each one of you. What gives you guys joy, and what gives you guys happiness in what you do every day? Because why do you do it if it's so hard, right? So Nicole, how about you first?
It's the passion. It's knowing that essentially one day the product that I'm going to develop is going to help save people from tick-borne illnesses, and it's going to help them be able to enjoy the environment without having to worry about them as a pest. So it's the passion to know that one day I'm going to make a difference.
For me, it's winning. I hate losing, and that's what motivates me, right? It's seeing my clients being happy and growing my client list. To me, every day is sort of a game, and what I want to do is win, and that's what motivates me.
And for me, it's serving others. So when my phone rings and somebody is in need of something, if I could, help them get what they need, and especially when it comes to PPE, I know I'm doing good because they're products that are still hard to get and that my customers need, and I feel proud to be serving them and getting it in their hands because I know they really need it.
I agree with Chris. This has been excellent, and I want to thank you. So will you guys be able to jump into the Q&A and look at some of the questions and in the portal and answer them, too, for some of the students that we have?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That would be great. All right, so TechBridge Nation, we're coming down the home stretch. We've got our breakout sessions, which are awesome. The question I have for you is, have you reached out? Have you tried to talk to someone you don't know? Have you posted a question? Have you made a comment? We got one more breakout session, so we'll be back shortly. Thanks for being here today at the virtual Entrepreneurship Institute Conference.